going. We have a recording. You're welcome to session 2. And as I say, thank you for taking the time out of your life to be at this, because one of the reasons that this session, I guess, is necessary is that we are all so darn busy that we don't get a chance to stop and kind of reflect and think, what are we busy moving towards? And so the session exists for that reason. And the fact that you take an hour out of your day to be with us here today I take that as a big responsibility to give you a good hour's value as a for that time. So let us go on. Let me just, one of the things we're talking about in today's session is focus, and about being able to decide, where do I want my mind to settle? Where do I want to use the limited mental resources that we all have? Where do I want to focus on to get the best? And that means being intentional about what we choose to mentally bring our attention to. So if you've committed to this session for some reason that you're saying, I think this will be good for me, I think I'd get something out of this, I think I'd go into 2020 feeling more focused and together, well then let me suggest that try to be here as much as possible for the next hour. So make it an intention just to close off any distractions that might be around you. So other tabs on your browser, maybe putting your phone onto silent or switching off, closing the door, etc. Just so that instead of having the attention diverse as it often is onto dozens of different things, that you're really making this investment just in you for this hour and just in what you want to do in 2020 moving forward. Let me address the folks who are watching this as a recording, and you're very welcome. I had several mails last week from people saying that they really wanted to be here, but you know, life is a busy thing, and so they're tuning in by recording. I said it last week, I'll say it probably next week. You'll get the most out of this if you approach it as if you're live on the session. The inclination, my inclination, most people's inclination when a recording is on, is to put the recording in the background and then go about your business and just kind of half listen to it. And again, it's dividing your attention. And one of the things that we'll see is that when that happens, your mind wanders, and when your mind wanders, lots of different things happen that you really don't want. Okay, so with all that said, let us dive straight in. What we started from was, wouldn't it be nice if on New Year's Eve, instead of starting to think at that stage, what am I going to do during 2020, as we are all kind of culturally inclined to do in the form of a New Year's resolution, what if gently over these couple of months leading up to that, we reflected and really got a strong idea of, where do I want to orient myself for 2020? Wouldn't it be nice when that bell rings to know, I know where I'm going, and I know exactly what it is I want to get out of this year. And that's the objective of this program that runs over, as you know, 4 sessions. Last week, what we said was we're going to start from an overarching vision of, generally speaking, where do I want to go? And I position that vision not as being a set of goals, not as being something that something solid, tangible, and really definable that you want to achieve, 5 years hence, but as a direction, an intention, or as Richard Boyatzis says here, something that consists not of actions or obligations, which inform so much of what we do day to day, but more of a dream, more of a North Star, if you like, that guides what we do day to day and the way we think and the things that we commit to. And thank you to a couple of people came back and said that they grabbed Boyatzis' book and had very, very good feedback on it. It's one of the best that I've seen if you're a parent or a manager, a business person, are responsible anyway for guiding people to change themselves, change their lives, change their behaviors. It's a really nice piece of work. And what I liked was the way he positioned the importance of this North Star. And he said, it's not about the actions or obligations. It's really about having, what would I really, really like to happen? Now, one of the things from some of the conversations that I had on email with some of you that struck me was that I mightn't have strongly enough stressed what the objective of that vision was. And the problem sometimes with setting, longer term visions is that the mind can get into a mindset of, that's great. I know it's all going to be perfect on October, whatever it was, October 24th, 2024. So all I have to do is just work through the purgatory, the hell of the next 5 years, and I get to this nirvana. The objective of setting this vision was more so that you have something that every day inspires you, that when you get out of bed, you say, oh, I'm moving towards something that matters to me. And I'm doing it intentionally. And today is another opportunity to move a little bit in that direction. And I'm going to intentionally do that. And I'm going to enjoy the journey. So what I would encourage you, as we're talking about this visioning process, not to allow yourself to fall into that mindset of putting it all off in the hope of paradise to come, but rather looking at that vision as something that informs the way you show up day to day and makes that, if you like, the day to day a paradise, if you are, or nirvana, or maybe paradise and nirvana is a little bit much, but so that you can really enjoy your days knowing you're moving the way you want to move. Okay. Last week I used an analogy, and from a lot of the emails and the feedback I got from you, it seemed to land very well, and I just wanted to touch it again. And I said, if you have, most of us have a GPS in our car, or we have it on the phone, and we use it for helping us to figure out where we want to go. And very few of us get into the car and say, let's just go wherever the car happens to go. Let's just drive and see what happens. Okay. You might do it when you're trying to clear your head, or you're just trying to get out of the house, or whatever. But in general, we don't do that. We tend to sit in and we set, a direction. We say, here's where I would like to go. Let me move my video off there so the people watching the recording can see that. Here's where I want to go, and you program it into GPS. And I said the visioning process that you started last week, and that hopefully you've continued during this week, is like putting that destination in. And then I said, but, if you've ever had the experience that you're driving along and you're listening to your GPS and your mind just fades off somewhere and you realize, oh, darn, I've missed a turn. I've gone on autopilot and I've completely missed a turn. You realize that the GPS is only useful if you actually pay attention to the directions that it's giving to you. And so you have to be somewhat, when you're in the car, intentional about, I'm going to listen for what this GPS tells me in terms of way to go. And what I suggested to you was that as you start each day, having that intentionality, having that approach that says, I'm going to watch for the turns today that are going to help me to get that longer, the further destination is what I'm going to do today and every day. And I think in everything that we're talking about over these 4 sessions, intention is going to be flowing through it as a very, very strong vein and a very, very strong theme. And I'm going to suggest to you, because most of us spend most of our time, and I'll show you the stats on this very shortly, most of us spend most of our time on a kind of autopilot, acting without intent, and almost like, like a leaf in a stream, just going wherever the stream happens to go instead of deciding where we want to go and navigating there. And we miss so much of the richness of life. So a lot of what I'm going to be encouraging you to do over these next few sessions is just to get intentional, just to start doing things on purpose, to start behaving during your days on purpose with an idea in mind that this is the way I'm navigating. So to help you remember that, I used I spoke to you about the coins. Let me see if I can find mine in my pocket. I think my lighting's slightly better here today. And I said to you that we created these and we hand them out in the program. And on one side it says, what are your intentions for today? And on another side, what are you grateful for today? And Sally in Hong Kong said, her words, I'm going to pimp up a coin with Tipex on one side, or Tipex on both sides, and I'm going to write grateful on one side and attention on the other. And she's going to create her version. And I said, get yourself some kind of physical cue like that. It can be a foreign coin in your pocket, or it can be anything that you just use day in, day out, just to help remind you to be intentional about some of the stuff we're covering on this program. And what I said for the gents was, most people have a routine. Gentlemen, because we wear trousers most of the time, it's a very easy routine to establish. In the morning, as you get up, you go to your bedstand to get your keys, whatever else was in your pocket. And as you pick this up, it's just a physical cue that says, reminds you to think, what do I want to do today? What are my intentions for today? And then putting it into your pocket. And then as you unpack it, at night, just stopping and saying, what have I got to be grateful for today? And gratitude is something we talk about in the next session, but we all have a lot to be grateful for in our lives, even on the crappy days when it seems like nothing more could possibly go wrong. There's always something there to be grateful for, and we need to bring attention to it for all of the reasons I'll talk about in the next session. So a huge amount of really compelling research on the advantages of gratitude. Thank you, and I apologize, I can't remember the name of the nice lady who wrote to me and said, because of the pocket challenge, what she's done is she's put the coin with her makeup stuff. So when she gets up in the morning, as she reaches for her cleansers and her foundations and so on and so forth, she's picking that, she puts it in front of her, and as she's getting ready for the day, that's just reminding her to visit her intentions for the day. And then at the end of the day, she goes into cleanse and tone. Again, the coin reminds her just to be more intentional. And all this is just to try and bring some presence, some attention, some focus to what's going on with us day to day, so that if we do have that longer term vision, that we're intentionally moving towards it. So that was last week. And what I said, or what I suggested to you last time, was that the real work on this program is not done during the 1 hour that we spend together, but it's done in the practice and integration of this stuff into every day. And I suggested that, one, you journal on the personal vision prompt every second day and start to refine it. And just allow it to grow, and it's going to take, maybe it could take weeks just to get to a point where you feel, that inspires me. And then I said, download the journaling app from the Apple App Store or Google Play Store, and try some of the personal visioning prompts, because they take slightly different angles on the same topic, so you can get a more rounded view of that vision. And then set a daily intention until we met again today. That today I intend to move towards greater clarity on my personal vision. So let's use the hands up feature here. And let me just ask you, how many people, this is not teacher checking in, it's just curiosity. How many people got an opportunity, give me a hands up, to do something with this and to spend any time with this at all? Okay, so lots of hands going up. Super, wonderful, because honestly, this is where the shift happens. If it's going to happen, it happens in the gaps between the sessions, when you bring this back into your life in the way that's meaningful for you. So thank you for that. Now, if your life took over and you got really, really busy, and you found that, darn, I couldn't get that, I couldn't get to that, or it just didn't quite happen, don't worry. That, you can start this anytime. You saw that thing last week with Nobel, at a point in time when, let's face it, who he was pretty strongly engraved on the material of his life. And he kind of turned on a dime and changed completely his direction, who he was. And at any moment, every day that we get out of bed, we have a New Year's Day. We have an opportunity to say, today I'm going to start. And so if any of this stuff makes sense to you, well then, and you haven't had a chance to get some of that done, don't panic. You just start now. Just start today, start tomorrow, and carry on. So great. And I'm delighted that so many people got enough out of it that you've decided to do that. So let me see. Let us move on. Oh, I wanted to mention this. This is one of the great things, just a little bit of the science that's, and this has been spoken about for a long, long time, something inside your brain called the reticular activating system. And basically, we are inundated with data from the outside world on an ongoing basis, more than we can possibly handle. And so there's a bundle of nerves, as you can see there at the brainstem. And that bundle of nerves, called the reticular activating system, or the reticular formation, is just a filter that decides, what will I bring to the attention of the higher order brain? And notice, let me just get a pointer there. Annotate, and a pointer, come on, baby. There we go. You'll notice that there's connectivity from that very ancient part of the brain up to the higher levels of the cortex. So it's connected into the real thinking parts of the brain. And basically what it does, as the piece here says from Tobias, it takes what you focus on and it creates a filter for it. So it goes on autopilot like a GPS, and it's just continually looking for any data coming from the outside world that might be suggesting to you, hey, here's an opportunity to move in the direction of that vision. So continually revisiting or getting a clarity on the vision and then revisiting a daily intention really does prime up that RAS to be looking out for the turn right, turn left, keep going straight direction to keep you on track for that vision without you ever having to sit down and think, what am I going to do next? What will I do tomorrow? You can just allow it, if you like, to happen. So that was last week. And we started with last week, and we started with Boyatzis, and I used a piece from his new book, just simply because he has a depth of research behind this. And even though we've been teaching this approach for a while, his research just shows, hey, this stuff works. But I wanted to steal from him again, because what he says next, he says, once you've got, if you're working with somebody, you're helping them to figure out where they're going or to make behavior changes or to act upon their vision. Once you've got clarity of vision, and you'll get that if you stick with the exercise between now and the next session, then it becomes an approach. The next step has to be, here's where I want to go. Here's who I want to be. Here's the way I want things to be. How does that compare with the way things are right now? So he says, identify any places where the real self is not currently aligned with the ideal self. So that's where I want to talk a little bit about self-awareness and start to focus on that, because before we come to the next session, which is intentionally about 2.5 weeks away, I want to give you plenty of time so that that vision really becomes crystallized, really becomes very, very clear, so that you have this clear idea of who you want to be and where you want to be and what you want to be doing, and that you can then start saying, I'm priming that reticular activating system and with what are the things that I need to do to be able to get there. Now, as we work through the program, through this session and the last few, and we talk about the alignment between where you are now and where you're going, we're going to talk about it in 3 ways. First one, we're going to talk about what needs to change inside me. You know, who do I need to be that person that inhabits that vision 5 years hence? What needs to change in the interactions I have with others in the way that I show up? Because I think it was John Donne said, no man is an island, no woman is an island either. No person is an island. We live in a world where we are partly defined by what's going on inside the head and inside ourselves, but also partly defined by the interactions we have with others and with the outside world. And that's as important as what goes on inside. And then what needs to change in my circumstances? Now, over these few sessions, we're going to focus mostly on what needs to change inside me, what needs to change in my interactions with others, because that's going to prime that question, what needs to change in my circumstances, and start to open you up to the opportunities that are around you for changing those circumstances. So most of our exploration is going to be on the first 2 questions. And to figure that out, it means we have to become just more self-aware. We have to be aware of who are we right now? What are we saying to ourselves? How do we show up to ourselves? What got us to where we are right now? And to be able to, and again, to be able to change the way we show up with other people. 2 elements we're going to talk about on the program: internal self-awareness, identifying the personal strengths and weaknesses, values and aspirations that are going to help us to move in that direction that we set. And then external self-awareness, you know, how we show up in the world. So those are the 2 main sort of foci that we're going to have over these next couple of sessions. So let's start with internal self-awareness. I love this quotation. It's not from a book. It's just from, oh God, I've forgotten the man's name. I'll send it to you in the follow-up. It's from a doctor, a medical doctor in the United States. And he put it into his blog a year or 2 ago. And I think it really encapsulates the reality of existence. He says, because, and I'm putting this in brackets, because we can only actually focus on any one thing at any one time. That's what the research says. He said the only true certainty is our ability to pay attention to one thing or another. So whether it's something in our body or our mind or our surroundings, we only have the ability in any instant to pay attention to one thing. And so by definition, he says, the thing that you're focused on right now must be the most important thing in your life. Now, I don't know about you, but a lot of the time I'm focused on oughts and shoulds and other things that really are not actually the most important thing in my life. And Stephen Covey in his book all those years ago spoke about the difference between important and urgent. And we've such a fast moving world that we live in that we also often get caught up in the urgent, and we're focused on the urgent, but it's not actually the most important thing. So the question and the idea of becoming a little bit more intentional is about more often asking, is this where I want to be focusing my attention? And to be able to answer that question, and to be able to ask that question, we have to become a little bit more aware of where our attention is at any point in time. And that's what we're going to work on actually right now. Interesting. Here's a piece from Harvard Business Review. It was a big study by a guy called Killingsworth. I'll send you a link to his study, and I'll send you a link to that will allow you to take part in his study. I won't go into the methodology, but it involves tens of thousands of people just like you and I interacting with their study 2 or 3 times a week for a few minutes on their phone. And bottom line, he says that 47% of our time is spent mind wandering. Mind wandering being, I'm not looking or thinking about anything in particular. It's my mind is just away, as my mom would say, away with the fairies. It's just somewhere else. It's not intentional, not under my control. And the science suggests there is a certain curative effect in a small amount of mind wandering that allows the mind to kind of recharge itself and get itself back into operating order. But the research mostly suggests that mind wandering is one of the prime causes, and not a consequence, but a prime cause of unhappiness. And that sense of unease or dis-ease that so many people report in our modern world experiencing day to day. So a lot of the time, if you read into this more and you read into Killingsworth's study, which I'll send you, you'll see that he makes the point that when our mind is wandering, very frequently we're time traveling. We're back thinking about the past, or we're forward thinking about the future. And it's rarely about, oh, remember all those super duper things that happened to me in the past. It's usually kind of shoulda, woulda, coulda type of thinking. Or in the future, it's rarely, oh my God, what a wonderful world it will be in 5 years' time in 2024. And more, oh, what if this goes wrong? And what if this happened? And basically catastrophizing. But bottom line is, this is really compelling research. It's been published, as you can see in the top left-hand corner, in Science magazine, that says that a wandering mind is not a happy mind. And that was the name of the study. A wandering mind is not a happy mind. So a mind that is not present, is not paying attention, is not here, tends to be less happy than one that is paying attention and is present and here. Now, this is a slightly unfair slide, because I would say, with the possible exception of a small number of a couple of thousand Buddhist monks, and even then I'm not sure about those guys, even the ones who live in the forest and in the caves and on the top of the mountains, I don't think there's a human on the planet who could look at all of these things and say, nah, it never affects me. I never forget where I am, literally or figuratively. I never find myself halfway up the stairs wondering, was I going up or going down? Or if you can figure that out, what was I going up for? I never have my thoughts race at night. I think most of us look at this and you can see some things that indicate that we're living somewhere other than in this present moment. And it's really a question of extent. You're never going to change that completely. You're never going to eliminate that completely, but you can actually, through managing the faculty of attention and developing the muscle of attention, you can be more present more attentional. And if you can be more attentional, it means you can be more intentional. Because when you know what you're doing at any moment in time to a greater extent, well, then you can decide, what do I want to do? Okay. So, bottom line is, what I'm trying to say is everybody, to some extent or other, is not as present in their life as they could be. And that lack of presence, that mind wandering can have undesirable consequences. So what we want to do is really learn to be present, learn to be able to be here in this moment as much as possible, to be able to decide where we want to place our attention. And I've forgotten that man's name, but if what you're focusing on at any moment in time is by definition the most important thing in your life, well then to choose what is the most important thing in your life. And that means to become more mindful. And everybody has heard a lot about mindfulness. I'm sure you've read about it. Some of you are practitioners already. Some of you have flirted with it. Some of you have just heard about it. And maybe there is somebody out there who hasn't heard the word mindfulness recently. But mindfulness is just about being able to pay attention to the present moment, to give you that choice, that intentionality, etc. I have 3 definitions. I'm not going to do a deep dive on mindfulness because this whole session is not around that. If you want to do a deep dive on mindfulness, let us know, and we'll hook you up with our 8-session program, which we ran at the end of last year, called Mindful Leader. And over 8 sessions, it does a real deep dive into mindfulness. It's an 8-week program, no cost, of course. But here's what mindfulness, here's one definition. And self-awareness, they're about being present or paying attention and choosing where we focus our attention at any moment in time. So with that choice, if we know that I'm developing a greater ability to choose where I place my attention, it means I'm getting a greater ability to choose my intention in that moment. And I'm getting that, well, it's a little bit like that GPS again. It's the twists and the turns saying, you need to do this now, you need to do that now, that keep you on track for that longer term vision. Let me give you 2 other definitions that I love, which are less formal definitions than you'll see in programs that talk specifically about mindfulness. This one from Dan Harris, I love this because it's just so pithy. He says, it's the ability to know what's going on in your head at any moment in time without getting carried away with it. So noticing what you're thinking, where you are, what you're paying attention to, without getting carried away into stories as we so often do. And by the way, if you haven't read Harris's book, it's a great read, a little bit irreverent. For American audiences, a lot of spicy language in there. He's a news anchor in the United States who had a major breakdown on network television in front of millions of people, and who found his way basically to mindfulness as a way of dealing with the challenges, the stress that he had in his life. Really interesting, easy to read book, humorous, but some deep messages. But I love his definition of mindfulness. And this is a gentleman you may have heard of. He has a great talk up on TEDx, on TED Talks, called Andy Puddicombe. And he's the founder of Headspace, which is one of the biggest mindfulness apps in the world. And I love the way he puts it. He says it's being here and now, being present, being mindfulness. It's being focused on what you're doing right now, not, as so many of us are, lost in thought, distracted, or being overwhelmed by difficult emotions. And by the way, if you are not, from time to time, lost in thought, distracted, or overwhelmed by difficult emotions, you're probably not living in our modern world at all, because it's a quite normal reaction of our ancient bodies, minds, brains to the abnormal environment that we live in. The question is just how do we manage it so that those impulses which were designed to keep us safe and to help us survive in a very different world to the one we live in, so that they don't cause us the harm that comes from stress and distraction and difficult emotions. So that's what we want to focus on. So it is really about being here now as much as possible. Recognizing that unless we go up onto the top of a mountain or into a cave and sit there contemplating and meditating for the rest of our lives, that it's going to be a question of being here now more often as opposed to being here now all the time, because we live in a distracting world. So how do you develop that presence and self-awareness? How do you develop that faculty? Well, it's really like any other muscle. If you wanted to develop your biceps, okay, so there's some compelling reason why you want to develop your biceps. You go to the gym and your trainer would give you 2 weights like this and say to you, hey, give me 10 reps of this. Give me 10 repetitions of this. And it might be, I don't know, 15 kilograms, 20 kilograms, whatever it happens to be. And you start off and you think, easy peasy, lemon squeezy, I could do that. And you give it 5. And when you get to 6, you're kind of giving it this, and then 7, and then 8, and then yeah, just as you are about to fail, it's likely that your trainer says, just 1 more. And you're thinking, I'll give you 1 more. I'll give you one of these, the upside of your head, if you keep at me. And what the trainer will tell you is, in the moment you go, oh, God almighty, that hurts. Holy God. She'll tell you that in that moment that you have trained to failure, that you've set the muscle up to grow and replenish even stronger than it was before. You're basically, every time you train and you fail, that you get to that point where you fail, the muscle grows again and becomes a little bit stronger and a little bit more capable of doing the task. And of course, 2 weeks later, when you go back to it and you're giving it this, your trainer naturally enough gives you an extra 5 kilograms so that you're always pushing yourself and you're always forcing that to grow. But what we want to do is exactly the same thing with the faculty of attention. There is a part of the brain called the insula, largely responsible for focus, self-awareness, and as it happens, empathy with other people. And that part of the brain can be developed to be more effective simply by exercising it, almost the way you're intentionally exercising it, using that analogy of the way you exercise your biceps. And so we're going to look at some mental training, a simple mental training exercise that is just designed to develop that faculty of attention. Now, it's outside the scope of this program, but it's covered in the other program I mentioned earlier on. But the insula, after several weeks of this training, actually does increase in volume. The amount of tissue in that increases. It literally, physically grows in response to that exercise and becomes more capable of doing its job effectively. So what we're going to look at is a simple brain training exercise to do exactly that. Let me get my timer in front of me. And let me just kill the sound on this system, which is giving me reminders. There we go. So what we're going to do is a simple brain exercise. Now, if you're in an office and you're surrounded by people, well, then when I say to you in a few moments, you can close your eyes, that might not be convenient. It might not be something you can easily do or comfortably do. So if it's not convenient while we do this for you to close your eyes, you can just allow the focus of your eyes to become a little bit softer and to fall maybe a meter in front of you, 3 or 4 feet in front of you, and just allow it just to gently and just to kind of settle in and relax a little bit. And what we're going to do is a little bit of mental training to start training attention. We're going to go through it once on the program, and then I'm going to give you some recordings that you can use to practice this on an ongoing basis. Very, very simple exercise, absolutely classic focus and attention training exercise that we're going to start. So let me suggest to you first off, why don't you, wherever you're sitting, just sit upright in your chair. Now, I don't mean to attention. I don't mean military fashion, but just sit upright in a way that tells your brain that I am planning to pay attention. And take your hands and put them on your lap or somewhere symmetrical, somewhere that they're just going to be out of the way, if you like, and that they're comfortable. Plant your feet flat on the floor. Okay. And now, just really quickly before we even start, just allow yourself to kind of flop. Let everything go. If you're holding your shoulders high, let them drop down. If you're clenching your jaw, as so many of us do, if your forehead is wrinkled, just basically, just kind of let it go. Let it all hang out, and just chill. Now, as we start into this, I invite you, if it's convenient for you, to close your eyes. Okay, so let your eyes close gently, and if not, just allow your attention to your eyes to drop down to 3 or 4 feet in front of you, and just let the focus go nice and soft. And just allow your attention, just for a moment, to drop down to your feet on the floor. Now, I don't mean look at your feet on the floor, and I don't mean visualize your feet on the floor, but just allow your attention to settle down and see, can you become aware of what's going on with your feet? Can you become aware of any sensations that tell you your feet are on the floor? And just noticing, for example, you might notice that sense of gravity where your feet are planted on the floor. You might feel a sock or stocking in contact with your flesh, in turn in contact with the shoe. Notice, is it hot or cold? Is there any tingling or pulsing? And if there's a complete lack of sensation, well, that's okay. Just notice that too. Just for 30 seconds, just see if you can just allow your attention just to settle and pay attention to any sensations that tell you your feet are on the floor. I'm going to go quiet for 30 seconds and just see if you can notice what's going on with your feet on the floor. And now let's just imagining that your attention is a little bit like a beam of light. Maybe just allow it to scan up and become aware of where your body is in contact with the chair. So where you're behind and your thighs touch the chair. And again, don't visualize, don't look at it. Just see, can you allow yourself to notice the sensations in your thighs, in your sitting bones, that tell you you're sitting in the chair? And just allowing whatever comes up, whether you feel tightness, looseness, hot, cold, tingling, just become aware of any sensations. Just sit with that for the next 15 or 20 seconds. Just noticing any sensations in the seat or the feet. Okay, so allowing the seat and the feet just to fade into the background. Let's bring the attention to your breath. Let's just see if you can very lightly notice the breath as it travels into your body, in through the nostrils, down into your lungs, back out of your lungs, up and out your nostrils or your mouth, and just noticing the breath on its journey in, and then paying attention to the breath on the journey out. And not changing the breath, just bringing a gentle attention. Your breath knows what to do. Just noticing something that we don't tend to pay attention to. Just see if you can follow a few cycles of the breath for the next couple of seconds of silence. Following it in, noticing it going in and out, following it back out again. And you'll find from time to time that you lose attention to the breath. That's normal, that's natural, that's human. Don't become upset by it. Don't feel it's a failure. Just notice, I'm distracted. Then gently return your attention back to the breath and start again. Just noticing the breath going in and out. And when you notice you're not noticing, just noticing you've been distracted and bringing the attention back to the breath. So just following the breath in and out gently and going through that cycle of noticing when you're distracted, bring the attention back again, just for the next 2 or 3 minutes. It can help to find that spot in your body where you're most aware of the breath going in and out. So maybe the nostrils, noticing the cold air going in, warmer air going out. Or you may even just notice your abdomen rise and fall, the pattern of your breath. And wherever it's most vivid for you, just allow the attention to settle there. If it's the abdomen, noticing the abdomen rise and fall on the in and out breath. If it's at the nostrils, noticing the cold air going in and the warmer air going back out again. And not becoming upset if you become distracted, but just instead accepting that that happens and returning your attention to the breath. We'll do that for 1 more minute, and then we'll carry on. And now just keeping the eyes closed if they're closed, or the attention, the eyes diverted down. Allow your attention to just let the breath slip into the background. Start to gently bring your attention back to any noises or sounds or sensations or the hot or the cold, anything in the room. And on the next cycle of breath, breathe in. And then as you breathe out, just open your eyes, stretch if you need to, look around, and let's carry on. Okay, so let me just ask you, and I'll ask you to contribute this in the chat while I just kind of unpick that exercise or unpack that exercise a little bit. So what do we do there just now? I said, in the main part of it with the breath, I said, just bring your attention to your breath. Notice it going in and notice it going out. By the way, if on the chat, if you can just put up anything on what did you notice for you? What was happened in that exercise? And there's no right or wrong answers. I'm just curious to know what was your experience of that. But let me tell you what it's about. So I said, pay attention. Ultimately, it said, pay attention to your breath. And so you follow the breath in, you paid attention to it on the way out. And maybe you got a full breath in and a full breath out before you got distracted. But what I know for certain is that at some stage, everybody on the call got some distraction for the breath, suddenly realized I'm thinking about something else. I'm somewhere else. I'm tuned into a sound. I'm not paying attention to the breath. Now, here's the analogy. Remember we said you train to failure. And so your trainer gave you these barbells and said, keep training until you just can't do it anymore. So you're paying attention to the breath, and then you suddenly notice, blast, I'm not paying attention. And the instruction was, that's normal. Don't worry about it. Just bring the attention back and carry on. Every time you lose attention to the breath, it's like you're trained to failure. And every time you notice that you've lost attention, you've actually become more mindful. Every time you notice that my attention has slipped, you've become more attentive, more focused. The idea of that simple exercise using the breath is just over time to be able, first off with the breath, using that as a barbell, as for exercise purposes, to be able to choose something to focus on and just notice when you lose attention, paying attention to attention, if you like. And developing that faculty, first off, it has a direct impact on the insula in the brain. But secondly, that idea of choosing what you focus on, in this exercise it was the breath. It could be just as easily, I'm speaking to somebody, I'm having a conversation, I'm going to pay attention to them exactly the way I do to the breath. Now, in the beginning, it's very intentional because you're paying attention to somebody, you notice that you've lost attention to them, and then you bring it back. And so you follow that same cycle with anything you want to focus on. I'm working on this particular piece of work. Oops, I got distracted by the internet, bring my attention back. And over time, what happens is that the amount of time that you spend distracted gets smaller and smaller. You notice when you become distracted, your attention becomes more intentional, you get more control over it. And it becomes a faculty that you can use much more effectively day to day to choose what you pay attention to. Now, you never get to perfection, or at least, let me say, I've never got to perfection. But you feel in as few as a couple of weeks practice of this, you feel the attention starting to become a little bit more robust and a little bit stronger. And I'm going to give you some materials for practicing with that afterwards. Now, I'll come to your comments at the end and your questions just on what you noticed. But all I want to say to you is that simple exercise is one that there is an enormous amount of really great research over the last 20 years that shows it develops really strongly the critical faculty of attention, of noticing what's going on. And it is every time you notice what's going on, you're no longer mind wandering. You're no longer off in the future or back in the past. You're absolutely where you want to be. So in the morning, if we put this in a bigger canvas, the morning you get up, you've already got this vision set. You've got this intention for your day. As you go through your day, the idea of developing this faculty of attention is to have the ability to say, where am I right now? What am I thinking? What am I doing? Is this serving what I am, the intention I set for the day? So before we come back next time, I'm going to give you some practice materials that'll help you develop that. But I see we have 9 minutes left, and that's okay. So that's getting started on the internal self-awareness. And we'll start to talk about how you can become more self-aware. In the next one, we'll talk about how you harness that to become more aware of your strengths and weaknesses and so on. The second one I want to talk about is how you show up in the world. I love this quotation again from Boyatzis. So much of the talk by people like me, when we talk about self-awareness is on internal self-awareness. And that's important. You know, having that focus upon our strengths and our weaknesses and our values and our aspirations and being able to choose to pay attention to that's important. But we are also defined and by the way we interact with other people. So the way we interact with other people, we show up to other people, the way other people experience us affects the way we experience ourselves and affects us, you know, in totality. So as Boyatzis says, without accurately looking, how are we perceived by others, your view of where you are right now is incomplete. And people will often see things in yourself that you don't see, and they can give you some really, really interesting insights. And that's why we offered you an opportunity to complete this assessment. It typically costs a couple $100, so it's a genuine gift. We're not going to sell you anything on the back of it. It's a genuine gift that will give you the opportunity to look through the eyes of people around you to see how do they see you show up. So the more information you get into, how am I showing up in the world right now? What way do other people experience me? what are the blind spots I have? The more data you have to feed into that analysis that's going on in the background all the time between here's where I'm aiming for my ideal world, ideal self, and here's where I am right now. Now, I'll remind you, if you haven't done this, I'll remind you in the follow-up with a link that allows you to sign up for it. And we'll talk about how you get the most out of it next time. We're intentionally allowing a bigger gap between this session and the next one for two reasons. One, to give you time to really flesh out the personal vision, and two, to give you a chance to get some people to feedback on you, get that report into your hands, so that you can get a sense of, how am I showing up right now? How do I and other people experience me showing up? When I follow on with you, because it's outside the scope, we're only doing 60 minutes in each of these sessions. It's outside the scope of it for me to unpack the whole thing of why look at the way you show up in the world, why look at emotional intelligence. I'm going to send you a link to, I think it's a 15-minute recording that walks you through an exercise that shows you why this is important. And I would really strongly suggest watch this and interact with it. It's an interactive thing. And in fact, on that, it'll also have a little bit about the neuroscience that's in behind that, because I know a lot of people on this call like to have the evidence-based stuff there as well. So if you've already signed up for the report and it's in train, don't worry, everything's good. We'll get that to you before your next session. If you haven't, it's entirely optional. But if it was me, I would want to know how other people see me show up. Try and get that done and have a look at this video. I think it really will help to put into perspective why this is important. Let me just move my video out of the way so the people who are on the, there we go. So the people who are getting the recording can actually see the heading. I had my video over the top of it. Okay, so we are about 5 minutes from the end. Here's what I want to do just for a moment. You can close your eyes or not, but I just want you to imagine that it's now November 20th and you're coming into this, the third session in this program. And I want you to imagine that you have a vision that is absolutely clear and absolutely crystal, and you know with certainty, wow, this is something that is worth living for. This is something that's worth focusing upon. And I want you to imagine then as well that as you're coming into that, that you've already established a habit where when you get up each day, you're living each day with intention. You know, you're saying, what's this day for? What's good? Or where should I be focusing my attention during this day? And so that journey is already proceeding and you're starting to feel that greater clarity. Well, the only thing that you need to do in order to have that tremendous clarity by November 20th is just stay with things during these next 2 weeks, 30th, these next 20 days or 21 days, 3 weeks. And here's how I suggest you do that. We'll say this in the reminder. What I suggest is, first off, again, continue with the daily intention. Today, I intend to move towards greater clarity on my personal vision. Get something as a physical cue. And then continue to journal on the personal vision. Do it every second day, and you could supplement it with some of the vision prompts from the app. But the idea is just to get to a stage where as you're doing that journaling exercise, that it becomes so routine that you stop thinking about it to the extent that you do the first couple of times, and it just flows out of you and you start to get that clarity. The third thing, if you want to get to do the assessment, start it as soon as we send you the reminder. If you can't find the link, as soon as we send you the reminder, if you haven't signed up for it, and get people to feedback on you. And people are always slow feeding back, so get it started sooner rather than later. And then I'm going to send you just a longer version of that attention practice. And I'm going to ask you to aim for practicing that daily. I think it's 9 minutes or 10 minutes long, the recording. So it's really asking you to make an investment of 10 minutes. And I want for you to see if you practice this, particularly if you haven't done this before and you've done no sort of mindfulness practice, I want you to notice that just from investing that 10 or 11 minutes a day over the next 21 days, that it actually makes a difference. And so that's what the intention behind this. It's not to load you up with lots of other things to do. It's to give you something that's going to start changing the way that you relate to things day to day. So here's what we're going to cover next time, just on the next journey. I love this expression because it's so true. Man plans and God laughs. As soon as you set a vision, as soon as you decide where you're going, things are going to go wrong. That's a given. You know, it's not a straight line from here to what you want to get. So we're going to talk about how do you build the resilience to stay with it when things go wrong. We're going to talk about a lot of the new research on gratitude as a way of, one, enhancing happiness, two, dealing with stress, and three, keeping you on track. And then we're going to look at how do you build, so the first two are really building your internal strengths. The other one is building on your existing external strengths as seen by the people around you. So that's where we're going with the next one. So with that said, and with just a minute and a half or some such to do it, let me hop into the chat and just see, oh, I'm not getting my chat. There we go. And I just want to see if I can get any questions or feedback. Oh, come on, you beggar. Make it longer. There we go. Okay, so let me just go back up and get some of your... Dr. Jack Bennett. Was it on the end of my slide? Oh my God, Sally, that's so embarrassing. Yeah, it was Dr. Jack Bennett was the guy who quoted that the thing you're focusing on right now is the most important thing in your life. Okay, Mark Huston, it's not the mind wandering, it's what we're doing as we're mind wandering. Always surprised by the research, and this is the real problem. Yeah, good point. Hi, Derek, have to shoot away now. I'll digitally do this, okay. Rachel said she got a sense of calm and peace. And Ashri said, my mind kept wandering from time to time. Welcome to the human race. That is utterly normal. Some days it may wander more than others, and you may wonder if you have ever any stable attention whatsoever. That's okay. Debbie said, a big clarity on my purpose. I felt space. Lots of wandering, but returning back. The moment you noticed you've lost attention, you just became more mindful. You've trained to failure. It started to work for you. I felt some aches and I got bored and distracted. Stephanie, great one. If you find yourself getting bored with this, notice that you're getting bored. Pay attention to whatever comes back or whatever comes up. Just notice, I'm bored, and return your attention. Felt sleepy. Anna, that's possibly because you're not getting enough sleep. That may be a message from your body. Distracted by a 1-year-old watching CBeebies. There you go. Tracy Lee says, breath is powerful. Anne Watley, and I can't see the end of your name, Anne, said how fast my heart was beating. Dennis said, I felt relaxed and calm. I even stopped coughing for the duration. Good for you. Pekka, felt relaxed, started to think about my future plans. When you start to think about the future plans, that's a distraction. Let it go and just bring the attention back to the breath. So keep it simple, just coming back to the breath all the time. Sandy said, heavy, sleepy, but also very aware of every part you brought my attention to, noticing things I never really noticed, like how tight my flip-flops are between my toes. Brilliant. Verpi, noticed my thoughts went away many times, but is able to be gentle with myself. When you're as goal-oriented as most people are on this program, every time you lose distraction, there's a tendency to say, ah, crap, I'm useless. I can't even do that. I can't even keep attention to my breath. The point is, this is about training to failure. Every time you fail, every time you notice you're distracted, and you bring that back, you are now mindful. Thank you. This is so helpful. Thank you, Tracy. Tony, we'll send you a reminder of how you sign up for the 180-degree feedback. That'll be in the second follow-up mail. If you came to the program, I can't remember, Tony, if you came to the program late, it won't have been in your welcome mail with a recording. Dennis, I did the 180, yeah, he said as part of his EQI program, and it was thoroughly recommended, very enlightening and humbling. Thank you for the session. Thank you. Thanks from Fiona. How does visualize the future relate to living the present moment? I would say that visualizing the future and allowing yourself to get a clear picture of what's going on inside your mind, Maria Katharina, is setting that clear vision of here's where I want to go to. I'm priming the thinking brain and the RAS for what are the opportunities around me if I'm paying attention to the present moment. What are the opportunities around me right now for me to move in that direction? And it's not even that you have to be thinking sort of all that cognitive, oh, what are the opportunities around me for moving towards my vision? It's more of, once that vision is set, you are going to be more mindful if you're training your attention of opportunities when they arise to move you in the right direction. Rachel, thanks thanks much. Thank you very much. You're welcome, Rachel. And Mike, feel really calm and feel more aware of my feelings, personal visions, and attention. Okay. So listen, thank you, folks. Thank you for taking the time. I'm now 2 minutes over. The main thing is, if you want to get the most from this program, oh, let me just go up here. If you want to get the most from this program, this is how to do it. Try and take some of the action. Try and spend some time. We have 2 weeks, and I just encourage you, imagine if you do this, imagine just how much clearer things will be when we're back together on November 20th. So with that said, thank you very much. Thanks for your time. You all have a great day, and I'll see you on the 20th. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.